Hi everyone, it's Selam. Welcome to Kümneger Talks. I'm back here again with Mary to reflect on season 1 of Kümneger. We've explored a lot of topics, had many guests share their experiences, and we decided that we wanted to wrap up the season with inviting the team that brought you Kümneger Talks. So I'm here with Mary.
Hi, everyone.
With Lealem Abebe, the music producer.
Hi, everyone.
And with Sarah Zeweldi, the sound engineer and editor.
Hello.
So if we could start off with some introductions. Lealem, would you be able to introduce yourself to us?
I definitely can. Hi, everyone. My name is Lealem Abebe. I am an environmental engineer by trade. I'm hailing all the way from Ottawa, wonderful Anishinaabe territory here. And I'm excited to talk a bit about what we've done and how I've been involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Sarah, what about you?
Hey, everyone. My name is Sarah Zeweldi. I have a background in post-production media, working with video editing. I'm based in Toronto, and I'm currently working in children and family development. And I'm really excited to start this conversation with you guys.
Okay, awesome. Welcome. So if I could just start with the questions. First question would be, how and why did you guys get involved? So if I can get Lealem to start off.
Yeah, totally. How? So the how I got involved was Selam reached out to me and told me that this research was being done, and I've kind of been aware of a bit of the activities she's been involved in, and always, a big fan that always love supporting. And so when I learned that there was going to be an opportunity to kind of take these learnings and make them into a podcast, I was super excited. Podcasts are always in. Everyone and their grandma has a podcast, and they should. So yeah, I was excited to get involved in it. I didn't think I would get involved in the way that I did, so I'm excited to talk a little bit about how that went and then why I got involved. So I think making some of these conversations accessible is really important, and podcasts are a great way for people to start thinking about things and to kind of break the ice in conversations, because it's such an informal, casual form of dialogue. It's a great way to bring people in, but also to make them think about things, because oftentimes when you're listening to a podcast, you're alone, you're contemplative, you're ready to kind of hear new ideas and maybe be challenged. So yeah.
Okay. What about you, Sarah?
Selam actually reached out to me, which I was really shocked about because I am so bad at branding myself as someone that's in the media industry. So I'm like, how did she remember this? How does she know this? But I knew it was a sign that maybe I should join in. And it was such a great opportunity to work with people in the Habesha community in this realm because I've never done it before. That's a little bit of the why as well. It's something that's new and fresh. Something like this is needed. Just being a part of something that can change environments, can change communities and leave lasting imprints, I think is important to be a part of. And that's why I joined.
Awesome. And Mary?
Well, I think my involvement is quite obvious, so I won't state the obvious. But what I will say is that I'll reiterate, I think, one of the first points that we made, Selam, in the introduction, which was that once we completed the data collection process and we had conversations with our participants again, there was an overwhelming sort of support to get this out into the community, as Lealem said, in a very accessible manner. And podcasts is very accessible, not just for people that were involved in this project or people in the Habesha community here in Canada, but beyond as well, right down to Ethiopia and Eritrea and everywhere else. So that was important for us. And so for me, this is sort of a new venture. I've never done anything like this before. So to have the opportunity to, take research findings and make it accessible in this manner globally, I think is such an exciting undertaking and necessary undertaking, and a new venture, as I said, for myself. So I'm super excited to have been part of this. I'm super excited that our participants suggested this idea and pushed for this idea. And I'm also incredibly grateful for the amazing talent that exists in the Habesha community and the ways in which that they've come forward to really support this from the moment we announced that we were doing this. How about you, Selam?
Yeah, I would have to say somewhat the same thing, that I was really excited when this idea of creating a podcast was suggested, because it's something I'd never really done, and I was interested in gaining those skills. So I think once we decided that a podcast was the way that we were going to go, it allowed me to reach out and sort of look into not only our community, but also look into the resources that are within the province I was living in, or I am living in Ontario, and see what sort of free trainings there are and free resources there could be to learn how to market ourselves, to learn how to put something together that'll be just as impactful and meaningful as we know it can be. So that was something that I was really excited to be involved in. And when I think about some of my favorite moments from this podcast, just moving into the next question, I think some of my favorite moments really have to do with the process and creating and learning more about podcast making and audio. There was just a lot of things that I really wasn't aware of, naturally not being in the industry. So I think that was one of my favorite moments about this creation process, just sort of seeing how everyone does their work, seeing how all these different types of people and all these different types of trades can come together to create something really beautiful. Continuing off of that question, what was your favorite moment from this podcast, Mary?
Oh, there were many, as you're aware, because we talked extensively about this throughout the entire process, and there were many. I think from its conception to where we are at right now, including right now doing this, is one of my favorite moments. It's very difficult to really sort of pin it down. But I just sort of go back to reiterating, my previous point, which is the way in which the people that we approached and just the community that we were parts of the community that we were interfacing with and getting this together were just so open and excited and resourceful and just ready to embrace this work and more importantly make it their own, right? Like, I think it's just the way that everybody saw themselves through this process and owned it and gave to it pieces and elements that it really needed so that it could really become an honest experiential piece that people can relate to. So if I were to sort of encompass it in that way, that would be the best way that I could describe it. It's a real project of gratitude for me, really. How about you, Sarah?
I have two, actually. One being, sounds really simple, but listening to the podcasts, it was a bit daunting at first, seeing that they were like 3 hours long. And I'm like, how am I going to have time to listen to all of these? But as I was listening to them, I'd look up and the duration's like 5 seconds left. I'm like, it's done already? Because it really felt like I was in that living room drinking tea with my friends, and we're just casually talking about life in a way that it can be hard for some people to talk about those things in work and school because they don't have that community around. So that was a very enjoyable part. I found myself laughing, tearing up, and being like, that's so true. Parents do that. And it really felt like I wasn't alone. My other favorite part is definitely working with you guys. You guys are just such great people. Not to sound sappy, but you guys are just have been so patient with me. This is my first time editing something like this. So yeah, I'm just really grateful.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say that, Sarah. It's been a joy working with you too. Lealem, what about you? You enjoy working with us too? No, I'm joking.
I do. I definitely do. You guys are a joy for sure. Yeah, you make it easy as well. For me, I think my favorite for the moment that stood out to me was in one of the conversations, like that realization that, sometimes you have to create, like intentionally create these conversations because even like thinking about myself and communities, different Habesha communities and like different intersecting Habesha communities I've been involved in, it's not often that you can kind of like step outside of it and reflect on it and think about it because you're usually just living it, right? You're usually just like in the day to day. And I think these kind of open-ended discussions and conversations are a great way to get folks thinking about certain things. And they really, they definitely made me think about a lot of stuff. Things that are very similar between different kind of parts of our communities and things that are very different, acknowledging those differences, acknowledging what unites us as well, but also just like being able to hear those different experiences and hear those other stories, because when you're in a very insular community or in a specific bubble, it's not often that you get to hear that other perspective or what life or identity or any of these sorts of things were like for someone else, right? So I found that really rewarding, validating as well. I can totally agree with Sarah. Like hearing certain things, you're like, oh, that's me. Like that's like, yeah, stop putting my life on display. That's me. Like you're basically talking about me. Um, but then also you like, you can have those aha moments where you hear something and you're like, wow, I never even thought about that, right? So I think that's the beauty of these kinds of open-ended conversations and discussions. So I think it wasn't a moment exactly, but it was like all of those different moments of just being involved in it that was something that stood out to me.
And thank you for sharing that, Lealem. So just posing one of the last questions, where would you guys like to see this go? Is there any place that you or any certain people that you're hoping pick up on this podcast or spaces? Personally, I'm hoping that it can flood the Ethiopian Eritrean online platform beyond Selam Central, beyond like all these different sort of groups, and we can have people talking about it. And I hope it sparks some sort of debate amongst the diaspora community here in the States or in Canada. What about you guys? I'm seeing a lot of head nods, so I'm guessing it's the same.
Yeah, totally. The the sky is the limit, especially in this digital age, right? Like the reach is like infinite. Like there's no limit now, especially through these sorts of forms of media, like who can hear it and who can access it. So that's kind of exciting, daunting, but exciting. Also, I think it would be great if, in one world, in a parallel universe, this like sparked like a continuous series of podcasts and discussions. Cause like those are my favorite kinds of podcasts, are the ones that keep going and like you can check on them like months later and like, oh, there's a new episode about this, or like, oh, like look, they have this new like kind of aspect or format and how they're doing it. So that would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, and we've definitely talked about that. And if people have any ideas as to what they'd like to hear us talk about, please send us an email at kümnegertalks@gmail.com. Reach out to us on social media, on Instagram, but let us know what you guys would like to hear us talk about. Or even if you guys would like to host a discussion yourself, please reach out to us. And yeah. So what about you, Sarah? Where would you like to see this go?
Yeah, similar to what Lala was saying, I hope it creates a spark and just keeps going, not only in our Kümneger bubble, but in maybe other podcasts that people want to start for other conversations. I hope the podcast gives a platform to more established people in the Habesha community to talk about things that maybe they were unable to speak about on their terms, or just show their side of their own life and be a relatable person that we can see and look up to, and see that they're just like us and they're our brothers and sisters as well, and kind of unite us in that sense. So yeah, I hope it becomes a podcast that unites us all.
Yeah, I agree. Mary, any last words?
I agree with everything that's been said. I go back to, when you sort of conceive one's project, I didn't realize we would get to this point, and this would be one of the outputs, right? And so I'm very, very grateful and excited for this. And so having sort of not having had the thought that this would be one of the outcomes, I'm just going to go ahead and say the next outcome is going to be something that I'm probably not even conceiving at this juncture, right? That it's going to be something equally incredible. But that doesn't take away also from the points that everybody else has made so far, which I completely agree with. So no, we send this podcast off into the universe with good intentions, with high intentions, that it receive people where they are, as they are, and that it does something meaningful for them, and that it sparks conversation, and that it moves the community on the whole forward in a healthy way. And to your point, Selam, most certainly, if there's talks that people would like to see happening, different topics that we didn't get to at this point, reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to look into facilitating something more. So it's I send this off with gratitude, with good intentions, and that it reach people and as they are, and that it moves things forward. And really, again, I just want to say thank you for every single person that got excited about this project from the moment they heard about it, from the research aspect of things to where we are now. All of this is possible because people committed and devoted their energies to it. And so it's not just about us having this conversation in this kind of way, but it also includes everybody from the beginning that was with us and shared their experiences to get us here. So I think, yes, Lealem.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the podcast beat intro itself, and a little bit about the inspiration behind it, because I think it's important to pay homage to its inspirations, but also its composition. And so just a little preamble, I guess, about how that beat came to be. In making music and making beats, I love to sample things. I'm a huge fan of sample-based production. It's like the backbone of, a lot of music, especially hip hop music. And so, at the request of the team, looking for something that kind of melded this kind of modern genre or hip hop genre with the Habesha element, or the our scales, our different scales of music that are separate from these kind of Western scales. So I went looking around all of YouTube, and I found this wonderful, beautiful composition in the scale of Tizita, which is a wonderfully somber, melancholy scale that our people love. Played on the kirar by a gentleman by the name of Dimetros Emawayo. So shout outs to him. If there's a way we can link it or credit that, I'd love to do that. And if somehow they become aware of this and would love to, I don't know, join and have another podcast conversation, that'd be really cool. But there's this really cool video of him playing what I assume is an original composition on the karat in this scale, playing, and he's just jamming his heart out for 7 minutes. And I was trying to take a piece of that would fit, and that was definitely a challenge, because it was just so much of it and there was so many good things. I couldn't decide what to take. So that was one kind of element of the beat, and then just like a bit of just simple drums, simple hip hop drums. But I wanted to make sure that I gave a shout out to Dimitros, because literally the beat, if we didn't have that sample, if we didn't have that flair in it, it would be like, you know, wet sabhi without shungkut. It would be nothing. You know what I'm saying? So shout outs.
That's an interesting metaphor.
Yes.
Good one.
So speaking of how we can sort of link the audience with these resources, how can the audience reach out to you? Where can listeners find you guys online?
Yeah. I can be found on all socials under the moniker For the World. It's my artist name, my singer-songwriter producer alias, I guess. It can be found on all platforms, on distribution platforms as well, streaming platforms, etc. So that's the number 4, the world, lowercase, no caps, no space.
And for me, you can find me on Instagram at sarah.zeweldi. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there as well, for Sarah Zeweldi.
And to let the rest of the listeners know, you can contact the Kümneger team at Kümneger Talks at gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Kümneger Talks, at Kümneger Talks. So just to wrap things up with thank yous and ending credits, I'll pass it off to Mary.
Oh, again, really, truly, it's been really, really, really great. I'm still reflecting, and I'm still a little bit quite heavy about how I can even articulate myself. But really, really huge gratitude. Thank you to everyone from Selam to Sarah to Lealem to Nassisse to Dagmawit for her work as well. Huge, huge, huge thanks to everyone. And I guess, more of this is sort of what I'll say. I'll turn it over to you, Sarah.
Yes, and thank you for the listeners. Thank you guys for taking your time to listen to what we've created. We'd love if you shared the work with your different friends, different social networks. Thank you so much. And that's it for this season. Thank you so much and see you next season. The Kümneger Talks podcast has been brought to you by Selam Abebe, Mary Goitom, and Nassisse Solomon. Our theme music has been provided by the talented Lealem Abebe. Our sound design is the amazing Sarah Zeweldi, and all the artwork has been created by the lovely Dagmawit Worku.